I thought it might be useful actually at this point to dive in and look just a little bit at that rule substitution question I pulled up from the digital LSAT. And I'll send you the link in the chat here if you wanted to take a look there. But overall, I really think that the biggest thing you want to be thinking about right now is just simply keeping in mind that these rule substitution questions, previous work can help. That's really my ultimate point here. So this question, I'm not even going to get into the substance of it necessarily. I want you to give this one a shot really on your own if you haven't had the chance yet. I want to more walk you through my thought process here. So this is a logic game. We have our scenario here. We have 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Then we have some rules about all these different people. Now, they're saying we want to substitute for the constraint that neither X nor Y's speech is earlier than Z's. So they're referring to the second rule of this game. They're asking us which of the proposed 5 answer choices would have an equivalent effect on the game if we took out that rule and put in something else. So these 5 choices, as we scan through them, we want to be thinking, what would be no more limiting than the original rule, and also no less limiting than the original rule? What would have an identical consequence? So as we're evaluating the choices, we want to ask ourselves, what would be equal? No more restrictive and no less restrictive. So if we're looking at choice A and we're considering L is at 3 o'clock, L must be at 3 o'clock. We want to ask, did we know originally with our main diagram, with all of our rules at the outset, did L have to be at 3 o'clock? If yes, that's promising. If no, then A would be more restrictive than what we knew previously, and it could not possibly be correct. If we go on to choice B, M cannot be earlier than Z. Again, what would be identical? So did we know at the outset that M could not be earlier than Z? Once again, what you might want to do is go through all your previous hypothetical scenarios, what you might have drawn for number 8 or chosen for number 8, what you might have drawn for number 10, what you might have drawn for number 12. Again, referring back to your scrap paper and seeing all of those diagrams, did we have M never appearing earlier than Z? Did that have to be the case? Same goes for C and D and E. We're checking for each of these answer choices, did our proposed answer choice conform to that hypothetical? Was it already known? And does a given answer choice happen to have the consequence of being more limiting than the original rule, or does it allow something that previously would not have been permitted? So that's the kind of the way you want to think about this. These rule substitution questions started with LSAT Prep Test 57, and they have appeared on nearly every single LSAT exam since then. So these are definitely worth practicing. You typically have at least one of them per exam. You might occasionally have 2 of them per exam, and they're not necessarily any harder than other questions. They just require a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of adaptation. Do a bunch of those rule substitution questions in a row in isolation. Do the particular game from test 57 that contains one, do the game from 58 that contains one, and so on, all the way through to 86. It's hard to get a handle on them when you're doing them scattered, just 1 out of 4 per section. But if you were to do 20 or 30 of them in a row, which you now can at this point because you have exams 57 through 86, typically containing at least one of them, then it will be a lot more noticeable. You'll be able to see the trends a lot more easily.